Well, hey everybody, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and the big question on everyone's mind is Bryan Kohberger angry and remaining silent, or does this guy have something up his sleeve and it's only going to take some time? I don't believe the trial's going to happen in October. I think it's going to be continued. But what's this guy thinking, and why did he remain silent? Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Profiling Evil. I'm Mike King, and it's really a privilege to be able to take some time today to chat with you about the Bryan Kohberger case. I'm here in Salt Lake City for the International Chiefs of Police meeting, and we've been taking a few moments out of the day to meet with Court TV to talk about the case. Now, this one is really intriguing because now we're seeing Kohberger appearing for his hearing, appearing to do a plea after that grand jury indictment. And what we heard was nothing. And that is what's so intriguing about this particular case. And there's only a couple of reasons why that might have happened. We're going to explore that in just a minute, but I hope you'll take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, do all those things that you need to do so that you're getting all of our videos when they're released. And frankly, folks, thanks so much for supporting Profiling Evil. Now, I appeared last night on Court TV with Xana to talk about the Bryan Kohberger situation and what's been going on in this case. You know, one of the first things that we talked about was the reasons behind raising means destroying the crime scene. Because we know now that Moscow is planning on destroying the home where the crimes occurred, where the murder of 4 college students occurred, and they're planning on doing it sometime this summer. That means it's going to be gone when this thing goes to trial. And that's got a lot of people upset. Some people think it's the right thing to do. And I thought you'd be interested in my response when Xana asked me that very question. Let's listen in.
In Salt Lake City, Utah, retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast and author of Deceived, Mike King, and in Los Angeles, California, body language expert, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. So good to have both of you on today. Mike King, let's talk about where we are in the case right now, starting with what Chanley was standing right in front of. She is literally there in front of what was a crime scene, is a crime scene, and they're going to demolish it before the trial starts. What's your thought on that decision when it could be somewhat important in the case?
I have really mixed emotions on this one, Julia, because that home we just saw recently in another, it was a school shooting case, but how important it was for the jury to walk through the crime scene and the place where this occurred. It's going to be kind of tough for them to envision how this perpetrator got in through that door in an upper level, worked his way from floor to floor without being noticed, and be able to pull something like this off without being able to physically walk around and vicariously roll in the environment where this happened. And it's so really important that the jury get this opportunity to kind of smell the smells and see the sights and see how dark some areas are and how light other areas are. But then I got this other side of me that says, this is for the best for the community. We know that there's technology that will enable us to have a digital imprint of what this house is like and what the interior's like, but we got to take care of a community as well along the way. And so I find myself waffling back and forth on.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's hard to know, and I think if this case becomes a death penalty case, I think that could change things. Because, as you know, in the case you were mentioning, the Parkland school shooting case, it was that penalty side of it, wanting the jury to feel what the horror was like inside of that place, and then the prosecution wanting to bring the jury there. The defense fought it, but it may be something that the prosecution decides they want in this case if it becomes a death penalty case.
So that's really the question on all of our minds, isn't it? Is this thing so important that it should be preserved until a jury can walk through? Because think about it. I talked about how important it is to kind of vicariously re-experience what that crime scene was like. You know, we still have question about where Kohberger came into the home. Did he come in at the main level from the street through that door where he would have had to make his way upstairs? Remember, there were 3 floors in this building. Or did he come through the same way that he exited, which we know is that sliding glass door at the back on the 2nd level? Now, this is really important information because if the jury could go and actually visualize what's going on, they could somehow come up with some idea of how this predator would have walked into the area, how he would have made his way from floor to floor and been able to pull this kind of a crime off. The other thing that's important is the series in which the crimes occurred. Did he start on the 2nd floor and move to the 3rd floor? Or was the preferential victim, the target in this case, on the 3rd floor, and he systematically worked his way down? And then, if that was what he was doing, why didn't he go all the way to the bottom, instead exiting out that building? But again, this all boils down to, would the jury benefit from seeing the inside of that building? And I think it's a question that's not going to matter, because we're going to have to probably rely on the Faro scans that were conducted, on the 3D analysis and the creation of the building. And people are going to have to visualize what the interior was like based on crime scene photos, on those 3D renderings. And it gives them a pretty immersive experience, but nothing like being there in person and walking through that building. So this one's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. Bottom line is, I think they're going to tear the house down like they're planning on it so that the community can start to heal. Frankly, they're probably spending buckets of money continuing to watch that place, having to put a guard shack in place and having to watch it day in and day out. Well, hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I want to share my thoughts about our affiliate, Truthfinder. I use Truthfinder every single day to research the people and the cases that we're talking about here. But you can use it to reconnect with a loved one, find an old friend, or look up your former schoolmates. Now, they make searching really easy, and all you got to do is enter a name, an address, a phone number, or an email. Then you're provided with this really cool list that you can start to explore. Use Truthfinder to figure out who that new neighbor really is, or keep your family safe by checking out the parents in your kids' carpool. Now, many of you use the internet to search out new friends, but you can use Truthfinder to sniff out scammers and online predators, especially before you meet them in person. And folks, we get a small commission when you sign up. It's about enough to buy a small soda, but you gain the ability to satisfy your curiosity, protect your family, and find the truth out about people in your life. Please take advantage of the special Profiling Evil discount code. It's on the screen and it's also in the description down below. And remember, you can cancel this thing at any time. Now, let's get back to today's crime case. Now, the next thing that was so important in last night's show on Court TV was the actual reading of the charges as Bryan Kohberger sat there. And there has been a lot of speculation online about whether he was reacting to what the judge had to say, or whether this is just one incredibly angry and intense human being. Now, you would have seen on the side of his face, and we're going to watch this video here in a second, the muscles clenching up in the side of his face as he talks. People are making a lot of commentary on social media about this very event. And I want you to watch this and weigh in yourself. When we're done watching this, I'm going to come back with a couple of thoughts that I thought were kind of important in this particular case. And we'll talk about what those really were from my perspective. And I wonder if you'll have the same opinion. So let's watch this video of the charges being read by Judge in the case against Bryan Kohberger.
This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. Count 3, murder in the first degree, a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Kayla Gonsalves, a human being, by stabbing Kayla Gonsalves, from which she died. Count 4, murder in the first degree. That's a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. Alleging that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle. Excuse me. This is hard. I'm sorry. Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Xana Kernodle, from which she died. Count 5, murder in the first degree. This is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died.
So here's the thing that I picked up. People were talking a lot about the fact that as the names were being read or as the cases were being read, that Kohberger seemed to be emotionally impacted or clenching his jaw. The thing that I found interesting was that when the judge made a few mistakes, and we know he made some mistakes on the names because he's been beat up over that. And frankly, folks, that happens. I make mistakes all the time here on Profiling Evil where I say the wrong name. In fact, during the Daybell trial, I was saying Tammy and Lori incorrectly at times because I was thinking so far ahead. So I want to try to cut the judge a little bit of slack. But, you know, this one had 4 children, 4 kids that were brutally murdered. It's too bad he didn't get the names right from the get-go. But here's the thing that caught my attention. The moment that I saw a change in his behavior, and we'll watch it again if you'd like, just go back and watch it and come back to here, or I'll play just that section when I'm done talking here about that, is when the judge said, this is really hard. Then you could see a lot more action here, and I think you can see some emotion exhibiting in Kohberger. If I were doing the interview, that's a point that I would be making a note in my notes about Kohberger being influenced by something that was being said. And frankly, I think the emotion of the judge is what he was saying was difficult at that particular moment. Not saying the kids' names. I think the fact that this is a heavy-duty, horrifying murder, and that judge might have been caught up a little bit in the emotion as he read these kids' names. Those of us who have children, thinking about that would be terribly difficult. So let's watch just that section again, where we see, in my opinion, a little more physiological response from Kohberger.
Willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle. Excuse me. This is hard. I'm sorry. Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Xana Kernodle, from which she died. Count 5, murder in the first degree.
And then finally, last night on Court TV, we talked about the fact that Kohberger is now accused of stalking another student over at the university in Washington. And this one's really intriguing because what happened was that it is now alleged that Kohberger rearranged some of the personal items inside of a student's apartment. That unnerved the student, who told Kohberger that she wanted some help in getting some cameras set up. Now, I'm not necessarily convinced that Kohberger went in and rearranged her stuff and somehow got her to then ask him to then help her out. But I am convinced if in fact it's true, and everything seems to point that way, that Kohberger leaped on an opportunity of someone who said, I need some help. It made him a hero. He set up these cameras, and apparently it gave him a way to become a digital voyeur. And I'll tell you what, almost every predator I ever dealt with that was a serial sexual predator, one thing that I saw that was really interesting is they had a period of time in their life where they were a voyeur, where they were window peeking, a peeping Tom. And I think this is a new form digitally where he could go in and be the hero, set up her apartment, and make it possible for him to have access to her cameras and see her in some of her most intimate moments when she thinks she's all alone. It is creepy to think about, and it is so frustrating, and it just makes you angry to think about the fact that this guy could have potentially been peering in on this girl. But what happens during this process is there's a period of fantasy that's going on, that there's ramping up, and almost always the voyeurism isn't enough. They start to fantasize about actually acting out these experiences with other people. And eventually, again, because fantasy is never good enough, they have to act out. And the tragic news is that every time they act it out, their reality falls short of what the fantasy was. So they have to go back. And this is what creates serial predators, which is the final question. Was Bryan Kohberger a serial predator? I have no idea. I think we're going to learn more information that will tell us. I don't know the answer to that, other than the mechanics and the characteristics would certainly point to the fact that this is serial predation and that he would be involved in something that would be very similar if in fact he didn't do this.
Bizarre allegations. Still with me to talk about this, Mike King and Dr. Carol Lieberman. Mike King, I want to start with you. You host a podcast called Profiling Evil, and I want to know if you've ever seen anything like this kind of claim. If it's true, what would you say was the profile on this kind of action?
You know, I have seen this kind of behavior before, but maybe a little bit of a twist to it as I investigated so many sexual assaults over time. And one thing that I learned from serial sexual predators, for instance, Julia, was that there is a period of fantasy, then a period of ramp up, and it's a little bit of testing the ice before they really make a big move, all part of the fantasy process. And if all of this is accurate, it makes really good sense that here we see Kohberger getting an opportunity to, in essence, be a voyeur. Instead of peeking through a window, he's using digital electronics, and this empowering feeling that he must have had to know, hey, I'm on the inside here, and this person has no idea. I'm messing with him a little bit. If, in fact, he's responsible for rearranging things, I'm establishing myself as some kind of a rescuer who's going to come in and make things better, but I'm fixing it all so that I can continue to be a voyeur. And the thing that's so frightening about this thing is that as these things progress, the fantasy, the little bit of testing the waters with you dipping a toe in, never is enough. Reality is something that has to be experienced. The fantasy just isn't enough. But the problem is the reality always falls short of the fantasy, and the cycle starts over, or they have to somehow fix what went wrong.
Well, there you go, folks. What are your thoughts on this one? What was the reason that Kohberger chose to remain silent? Because it really can only be a couple of things. One is that he doesn't want to have to say yes or no. I'm guilty or I'm not guilty. He feels like maybe that's sticking too much of a stake in the sand. Now, there's some speculation that maybe there's a plea deal in the works, and he's just trying to remain quiet so that the plea deal can go through and he can work it out. I think that's less likely. But here's what I personally think, and that is that there is a level of disdain. There is a level of arrogance in this person that thinks he knows it all, and all of this is one way for him to say to the court, I don't believe in the court, I don't believe in the court's jurisdiction, I don't believe that they have the authority to pull this thing off. And that is what I think is going to be the reasoning behind his decision to stand quiet at the time of his arraignment on those charges? Well, let me know your thoughts on this one. Put your comments down below. And thanks for your support of Profiling Evil. I hope you'll check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. And make sure you're subscribing to Profiling Evil. And please, folks, hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out. From Salt Lake City and the International Chiefs of Police Convention, I just want to say thanks so much for supporting Profiling Evil. If you like audio podcasts, check out Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. You know, we're averaging about 2,500 downloads a week, which is absolutely fantastic. And hey, folks, as we close this out, make sure you catch me tonight on Court TV. We're going to be talking about the Madeleine McCann case. That little tyke disappeared 15 years ago. Can you believe it? I invited my buddy, Lieutenant Tom Joyce, commander of the cold case unit in the New York City Police Department, to join me tonight with Vinnie Politan on Court TV. I hope you'll join us as well and catch up to date on what's been happening in that case. Hey, thanks for your support of Profiling Evil, and we'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.